Have you ever had one of those really rare moments, an unexpected challenge maybe that just sticks with you, and it kind of reshapes how you see things, for years afterward?
Oh, absolutely. Those lessons that come sideways, not head on.
Exactly. Not a lecture, but just an experience. Well, get ready because today's deep dive is into one of those unique stories. It's called the self-belief test.
Hmm.
So our mission today really is to unpack this amazing story. It's about what looks like a simple math test, right?
Yeah, on the surface.
But it turns into this really profound, almost life-altering lesson
Hmm.
about courage, how we see ourselves, and grabbing opportunities. We'll walk through the surprise, the choices the students made, which are fascinating, and this incredibly clever insight from the teacher. You might find yourself having a few aha moments about how you approach things yourself.
It's true. In this story, it's more than just a nice anecdote, isn't it?
Way more.
It really shows critical thinking, but
Yeah.
not just about, external problems.
Mhm.
It's about looking inward at our own limitations, and it highlights something very human. How often we pick comfort,
Yeah.
safety, over what we could potentially achieve.
Yeah, often without even clocking that we're doing it.
Exactly. It's a fundamental look at risk and reward, really.
Okay, so let's dive in. Let's just sort of feel this story happen.
Ah.
Picture it. First day. New school year. You know that feeling. Bit of excitement, maybe some nerves.
Definitely. New classroom, new teacher.
Right. So our narrator walks into Mr. Peter's math class first time. And the description of Mr. Peter, it's quite striking, calm, very focused,
Sounds intense.
but like a quiet intensity, this powerful presence, the kind of teacher who gets everyone's attention without even saying anything. You can almost feel that classroom vibe.
Yeah, I can picture that. The quiet before the, whatever comes next.
Exactly. So everyone settles down. They're probably expecting the usual, right? Syllabus, welcome chat, maybe an awkward icebreaker.
The standard first day script.
But nope. First surprise hits immediately. Mr. Peter doesn't do any of that. He just starts handing out a test.
Wow. Okay.
Can you imagine? Whispers start up. Already. People looking around, confused. It's day one. Who gives a test on day one?
Talk about throwing them off balance.
Totally. Creates this immediate, unease, but also, you've got to admit, a lot of curiosity. What is going on here?
That's the genius of it, though, that unconventional start.
Yeah.
Well, he completely throws out their expectations. Right from the first minute. He's signaling, maybe without words yet, that this class isn't going to be business as usual. He's setting the stage for something deeper than just math problems. He's already teaching.
That's a great way to put it. He is already teaching. It's brilliant. So he lets that shock settle for a second. Then he smiles, apparently, and he says, this is just a beginning of the year challenge. There are 3 different versions of the test. You can choose which one you want to take.
Ah, choice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And then he lays out the options. Super clear. Option 1, test A. This one's got a mix. Some easy questions, some difficult ones. But if you pick it, it's worth a full 10 points, the top score.
Okay, the high-stakes option.
Then there's test B, this one. Mostly easy questions, just a few tricky ones mixed in, worth 8 points.
The middle ground.
And finally, test C, described as very easy. Simple problems, quick answers, but it's only worth 6 points.
The safe harbor, maybe?
Feels like it. And the instructions couldn't be simpler. You have 15 minutes, he says. Choose whichever version you like. That's it. No hints, no advice, just choose.
That time limit adds pressure, too. 15 minutes isn't long to weigh those options.
Right. It feels a bit like a setup, doesn't it?
It does. It definitely plays on that human instinct, that risk aversion we have. We immediately start calculating, don't we? What's the safest path to a decent outcome? Even if a bigger prize is dangling right there, what's your gut reaction to those options?
Honestly, my first thought is, okay, what's the catch? How do I get decent points without totally bombing? Which is exactly what our narrator does. Doesn't want to risk it. Picks test B straight away. And the reason, it seemed safe, manageable questions and decent marks. Makes sense, right?
Logically, maybe. On the surface.
But here's the kicker. The observation that really sets up the whole lesson. Almost everyone else made the same choice. Almost everyone picked B. And crucially, no one in class, not one student, chose the 10-point test. Nobody went for test A.
Wow. Not a single one?
Not one. Isn't that something?
That is really something. That collective swerve away from the biggest challenge, it speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It really is.
It just begs that question for all of us listening, too.
Yeah.
Why do we do that? Why lean towards the safe, the manageable, even when something potentially greater is right there? It shows how powerful that comfort zone pull really is.
definitely. Okay, so fast forward 1 week. The kids have probably been wondering about that weird first day, that test. Now, the moment of truth arrives. Mr. Peter starts handing back the graded papers. You can imagine the anxiety, right? People trying to remember the questions, adding up points in their heads.
Yeah, waiting for that score that reflects their effort. Or lack thereof.
But then comes surprise number 2, and this one's a big one. It completely pulls the rug out. The narrator gets the paper back and realizes the grades didn't reflect how many questions we answered correctly. In fact, they didn't seem based on our performance at all.
Whoa. Okay, that would be confusing.
Immensely. You do a test, you expect the grade to match how well you did. But here, that whole system is just gone.
So what were the grades based on?
This is the baffling part. Each student received the score based on the version of the test they had chosen. Simple as that. The narrator picked Test B, worth 8 points. They got an 8.
Regardless of their answers.
Regardless. Others got a 6 if they chose C, or an 8 if they chose B. And here's the real mind bender. Only a few students who chose Test A, remember, no one actually chose it in the narrator's class, but maybe in other classes. Very few received the full 10 points, no matter whether their answers were right or wrong.
So if you had picked A, you got 10 points. Period.
Period. Imagine the silence and the buzz in that room. It goes against everything you learn about tests.
That is where the story just pivots, isn't it? It creates this massive cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
That gap between what they thought a test was and what just happened. It forces them and us to rethink everything about evaluation, about success even. It completely flips the script on conventional wisdom.
Totally. So naturally, there's confusion everywhere. Finally, the class monitor props to them for speaking up, asks the question everyone's thinking. Mr. Peter, why did we all get the score of the test we chose no matter how we performed? Like, please explain this madness.
Yeah, a cry for help.
And Mr. Peter's reply, apparently delivered very calmly, but it lands like a thunderbolt. He just looks at them and says, because this wasn't a test of math. It was a test of self-belief.
Wow.
Can you just imagine hearing that? The whole point shifts. It wasn't about equations.
Yeah.
It was about the value they placed on themselves before they even started.
Yeah, that's a game changer right there. His clarity just cuts through everything, and it nails the core insight, doesn't it? Often the real test isn't the thing in front of you, the math problems, the hard project, whatever.
Right.
It's your internal response, your willingness to even engage with the hard stuff, your belief deep down about what you're capable of tackling. It wasn't about can they solve it, but did they believe they could even try the hardest one?
Exactly. And Mr. Peter didn't just leave it there. He went on, he explained what he saw them do, and maybe more importantly, what they didn't do. He said something like, all of you say you want to reach the top. You want the perfect scores. You want success.
We all say that, don't we?
We do. But, he continues, when the opportunity came, with risk, with challenge, you chose comfort. Ooh, that's gotta sting.
Direct hit.
And then the real punchline, the bit that clarifies everything. You didn't even try to reach the highest score because it looked hard. You gave up before starting. Imagine that realization washing over you. You pre-failed yourself.
That is so powerful. And it forces us, listening now, to ask, how often do we do that? How often do we shy away from something just because it looks hard? We pick the safer route, not because it's actually better, but just because we're scared. Scared of failing, maybe scared of the effort involved. It's such a strong case for, that growth mindset idea, believing you can develop abilities rather than thinking they're just fixed.
Totally. And this whole experience, this weird test, it taught the narrator things no textbook ever could. Core truths. Like Mr. Peter basically showed them, you don't need to be the smartest,
Yeah.
We often think that's key.
Right, or the most naturally gifted.
Exactly. You don't need to be the most talented. Those things aren't the main ingredient. What Mr. Peter's test showed is that what you do need
Let me guess. Courage.
is to be brave enough to try. Just try. And the question he leaves them with, the one that really lingers, if you never reach for the highest mark, how will you ever know what you're truly capable of?
That really flips the script on talent versus effort, doesn't it?
Completely.
It suggests potential stays locked away, not because we lack ability, but because we lack the guts, the self-belief to even take a shot. Think of all the things we might miss out on.
So, okay, bringing it back to us. To you, listening right now, what does this all mean? Well, maybe the next time you're facing something that just looks too hard, or an opportunity comes up that feels exciting but also kind of scary, way out of your comfort zone.
Remember Mr. Peter.
Remember Mr. Peter and his self-belief test? Because it really shows the power of, like, choosing courage before the fear fully kicks in. Trusting that maybe the reward isn't just getting it right, but just having the confidence to go for it, to take the shot.
Yeah, success isn't always perfection. Sometimes it's just showing up for the challenge.
And that first step towards doing something great, it isn't knowing you are great. It's believing you might be great enough to just try.
Which leads to a practical question, maybe, for you listening. What's one 10-point test in your own life right now? Something you've maybe been avoiding because it looks tough. Could be anything. A career move, a tough conversation you need to have, learning that skill you've put off. Where are you playing it safe?
Yeah, and is that safety really serving you? Is it letting you see what you're capable of? And you just know, if Mr. Peter were somehow listening to this,
You probably just nod calmly.
right, maybe crack a small smile.
Yeah.
And then he'd likely say, don't be afraid of the 10-point test. Be afraid of never knowing you could have passed it.
Oof, that hits home.
Doesn't it? What a story. Such a simple setup in a classroom, but wow, it unpacks so much about us. It's such a great shortcut to understanding those invisible barriers we put up, not the external ones, the internal ones.
Yeah, it really forces you to question your assumptions about what success looks like, what failure means. And it's a powerful reminder that, real growth, finding out what you can do, that often happens right at the edge, just past where you feel comfortable.
You just have to be willing to step over that line.
Choose the higher path, even if it looks steeper. Our biggest obstacle is often just us.
So here's a final thought to leave you with this week, something to chew on. Building on this whole idea, what if the biggest test you'll ever face isn't about proving what you know, but about proving what you believe about yourself?